bienvenue sur Maybe Planet. Aujourd'hui, on va parler de la série télévisée Projet Blue Book, une série de science-fiction, mais basée sur des faits historiques. On vous en dit plus dans quelques instants, mais je vais d'abord vous présenter les invités. Et pour parler de cette série fantastique, on a des invités vraiment extraordinaires aujourd'hui. Je vais commencer avec celui qui est situé le plus loin, en direct de Los Angeles, aux États-Unis, le créateur, le scénariste principal, le cerveau qui a imaginé Projet Blue Book. C'est David O'Leary. David, welcome to the show.
Hello, bonjour.
Hello.
Very happy to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Pascal, alors tout le monde te connaît, Pascal, pour ceux qui suivent Maybe Planet, donc rédacteur en chef de Maybe Planet, et tu as travaillé aussi pendant plusieurs années pour le MUFON en France.
Le MUFON, tout à fait. Nous sommes ravis, Karine, de faire cette émission ce soir avec David, avec toi, avec Nico et avec Camille. Et je veux dire à tout le monde que c'est le Maybe qui héberge cette émission, mais c'est grâce à toi que nous faisons cette émission, puisque tu es ambassadrice de la série en France, et c'est lors d'une discussion sur une émission précédente que nous avons faite que tu m'as parlé du projet Blue Book, et vraiment un grand merci pour moi et pour les spectateurs français d'avoir pu organiser cette émission.
Mais c'est un plaisir. Camille, donc également à Maybe Planet, et toi aussi tu as travaillé pour le MUFON.
Oui, c'est vrai qu'avec Pascal, on a monté ensemble le MUFON il y a quelques années maintenant, et c'est vrai maintenant on a construit notre nouveau bébé qui est Maybe Planet, donc on travaille toujours ensemble sur de nouveaux projets, toujours dans l'ufologie, mais aussi dans d'autres choses.
Nico est avec nous également. Alors Nico, tu fais plein de choses, présentateur télé, auteur, conférencier, youtubeur, bienvenue.
Merci Karine, merci à vous tous. Je fais quoi? Je fais du français et de l'anglais? Comment tu...
Tu peux faire du français et puis traduire quelques mots pour David.
Pour David? Oui. So actually I used to work for Canal Plus and making some documentary about paranormal for a few years. And after I moved to Los Angeles, working in the entertainment area, working on video games, large production. So I have some feeling with David about it because I know in some way how we get through this process based on reality facts. At the same time, I used to work in production for the X-Files, a production based on a video game production. So I totally understand what we're going to talk about. Totally.
Great.
Alors, dans cette émission, ce qui est génial, là, c'est qu'on a vraiment des spécialistes de l'ufologie pour parler avec David, justement. C'est ça qui va rendre intéressant l'interview. Et je précise qu'on a des sous-titres pour le public international qui nous suit, English subtitle as well. Je vais vous décrire quand même la série en français pour ceux qui ne connaîtraient pas. Alors, la série, c'est Projet Blue Book. Ça se base quand même sur une vraie commission d'enquête de l'US Air Force sur les phénomènes aériens non identifiés dans les années 50, avec le professeur et astrophysicien Alan Hynek. Alors, c'est une série, c'est une fiction, ce n'est pas un documentaire, ça s'écarte un petit peu de la réalité. En France, la série, elle est diffusée sur Warner TV. La saison 2 va être diffusée en France en février 2021 sur Warner TV. Et pour le public international, pour les Américains, c'est actuellement diffusé gratuitement la saison 1 et 2 sur Peacock TV, puisque la chaîne History a annulé la saison 3. Mais ça, on va en parler dans quelques instants. Alors, dans la production de la série, on a David qui est avec nous, qui est vraiment le créateur qui a imaginé cette série. On a Sean Jablowski. On a Robert Zemeckis que vous connaissez parce qu'il a quand même réalisé les films Contact, Forrest Gump et Retour vers le futur. Donc c'est quand même du bon. Alors les acteurs, il faut qu'on en parle parce que là on a du lourd côté acteur également. Alors le Dr Hynek, Camille qui va justement nous montrer quelques photos des acteurs. Dr Hynek est joué justement par Aidan Gillen, que vous connaissez dans le rôle de Littlefinger dans Game of Thrones. Un rôle de méchant, et là c'est vrai que le Dr Hynek, ça n'a rien à voir côté rôle. On a le Captain Queen aussi, qui est joué par Michael Malarkey, qui est connu pour son personnage Denzo dans la série The Vampire Diaries. Il est aussi connu comme étant un super musicien et super chanteur, donc allez écouter sa musique. On a les deux généraux aussi, Général Harding et Valentine, qu'on va voir en photo. C'est Neil McDonough qui a joué dans plein de choses, Minority Report, Desperate Housewives, et Michael Arney qui a joué dans Orange is the New Black. Et puis on a deux filles super. Minnie Hynek, la femme du Dr Hynek, c'est Laura Menel que vous avez vu dans Smallville. Et puis on a Suzy qui est jouée par Ksenia Solo qui a joué dans Lost Girls avant. Voilà pour les acteurs également. Alors, juste avant de faire l'interview avec David, il faut que je vous parle quand même de la pétition, puisque malheureusement, la saison 3 a été annulée. La saison 3 est totalement écrite, elle est prête à être tournée. Et malheureusement, la chaîne History a décidé de l'annuler, pas pour des raisons d'audience, parce qu'elle a très bien marché, parce que c'est une politique différente, parce que History ne fait plus de séries de ce type, tout simplement. Et donc, il y a eu une énorme mobilisation des fans, avec un Allemand, Karsten, merci à lui, qui a lancé une pétition. La pétition est en train d'atteindre les 25 000 signatures de 148 pays. Donc, c'est mondial. En France, il faut que je précise quand même qu'on a juste 200 signatures. C'est pas beaucoup. Je pense qu'il y a quand même beaucoup plus que 200 personnes qui ont regardé la série et qui ont aimé. Donc, allez signer.
Les Français.
Ouais, allez signer, ça ne vous engage à rien. Allez signer pour aider justement. David, I have a question. So you know about the petition. Can you tell us why does it help? Why is the petition important?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, as fans may know around the world, certainly in the United States, unfortunately, we had a season 3 writers room going, but when the pandemic hit for sort of a variety of reasons, they did not pick us up for a 3rd season, which I think, came down to a variety of reasons. I think financial reasons, for some, this is a really hard time. And so what the petition does is sort of help communicate to, potential buyers of the show around the world, certainly in the United States and elsewhere, that a strong fan base remains. And we're very, humbled by the fact that this petition has gone on, and I think has something like 24,000 signatures, and it's been picked up by various media outlets and stuff like that. So I think my hope is that when we arrive out of the other side of this pandemic, that this is something people can look at as a real metric for hopefully the desire out there to continue to tell more stories in our Project Blue Book world.
Ouais, donc en fait, la pétition est vraiment, vraiment importante. Ça fait parler de la série encore maintenant. Et comme il le dit, les temps sont très durs, notamment avec la crise. Donc il espère que ça va changer. Après la crise, on en reparle un peu plus en détail de la saison 3 dans quelques instants. We'll talk about season 3 a bit more after, David, if you want.
Sure.
On va faire un tour de table. Chacun, j'ai envie de vous demander en 3 mots pourquoi regarder la série. David, I just want to ask the other guest to just tell 3 words. So why we need to watch the show, and they will answer. So, on va commencer avec toi, Camille. Allez, en 3 mots, pourquoi on regarde la série?
Allez, en quelques mots. Pour moi, la série, je pense qu'elle est vraiment importante parce qu'elle a le mérite de faire découvrir l'ufologie à des gens qui n'ont pas connaissance de cette étude-là par rapport aux ovnis. Et du coup, il y en a beaucoup qui pensent que c'est uniquement de la science-fiction, alors qu'en fait, pas du tout. Mm-hmm. Et puis en plus, il y a... Ma vraie raison, c'est parce qu'il y a Michael Malarkey, et puis voilà, les dames comprendront.
So she said that it's a good way to show ufology, and she said that another good reason to watch is Michael Malarkey.
Absolutely. I agree.
I agree too.
Je t'accorde. My French is, mon français est terrible.
Non, c'est bien.
Pascal, allez, en 3 mots pour qu'on regarde la série.
Alors, en 3 mots, utile. C'est une série utile. C'est une série libre. Ça, c'est important. Et puis surtout, c'est une série iconique, puisque Alan Hynek est une icône de l'ufologie mondiale.
So for Pascal, it's Alan Hynek, which is very famous in ufology.
Yeah.
Nico, je te laisse répondre.
Thanks for the last word. I would say I totally agree with Camille and Pascal about it, but I would say at last that this is because it is a good show. It's working very well. It's super rooted in reality, based on true facts. If sometimes you take some freedom to tell some stories, of course this is fiction, but I think it's a true story and a very good story in that way.
Alors moi je vais répondre aussi. Pour moi c'est vraiment le duo Hynek-Quinn qui est extraordinaire, hyper attachant, l'atmosphère et les effets spéciaux. So I just said the duet Hynek-Quinn is great, special effect and the 50s atmosphere.
Yes.
On va commencer l'interview. On a plein de questions. We start the interview. David, just before, I will let Pascal do a short presentation of the real Alan Hynek.
Ouais, je vais essayer de pas être trop long, effectivement. Alors, c'est difficile de résumer une vie aussi riche que celle de Joseph Allen Hynek. Alors, si Hynek est un astronome passionné par les étoiles depuis ses 8 ans, pour le grand public, Hynek, c'est le visage amusé du scientifique fumant sa pipe en observant un vaisseau extraterrestre sur le plateau du Devil's Tower dans l'un des derniers plans du film de Steven Spielberg, Encounters of the Third Kind. Alors, Hynek, c'est The Close Encounter Man, l'homme des rencontres rapprochées, comme le décrira Mark O'Donnell dans sa biographie, en référence au système de classement des observations créé par Hynek. Hynek, c'est le seul scientifique qui travaillera pour les 3 programmes officiels d'études des ovnis créés par l'armée américaine, SIGN, Grudge et bien sûr le projet Blue Book. Appelé à Wright Patterson dès 1948, il saura jouer le consensus pour s'y faire une place. Non par conviction, parce qu'il sera rapidement en désaccord avec l'armée sur la façon de gérer la recherche, mais parce qu'il comprendra rapidement que pour avoir des infos de première main sur les ovnis, il est au bon endroit. L'observation de Socorro en 1964, mais surtout l'incident du Michigan, aussi connu comme l'épisode des gaz des marais, le décideront à prendre ses distances et à assumer plus ouvertement ses convictions, comme premier acte, un article célèbre paru dans le Playboy de décembre 1967, The UFO Gap. Hynek va forger sa légende avec son livre, The UFO Experience, A Scientific Inquiry en 1972, et la création du CUFOS, Center for UFO Studies en 1973, continuité du Collège Invisible créé dans les années 60, qui comptait parmi ses membres Jacques Vallée, Aimé Michel ou encore un certain Claude Power. Il continuera ses recherches jusqu'à sa mort en 1986 et bien sûr, il reste une des icônes modernes mondiales de l'ufologie.
Et ouais, c'était vraiment pas un farfelu comme on peut imaginer, hein, c'était vraiment un astronome, astrophysicien. Pascal, tu voulais demander justement à David si il avait lu, s'il avait aimé ce livre dont tu parles.
Ouais. Tout à fait, tout à fait. David, I don't know if you have read the book of Mark O'Donnell.
I did. I absolutely did.
Sure. I was sure.
It's a wonderful book, and it's funny. Yeah. It came out like after we had been developing the show. Like it came out like I wish I had it like a year or 2 prior. Because I was searching for what I could find about his life, about his story, and about, the real life man. And, obviously reading his own books, you get certain, hints and clues to his way of thinking and, just finding, interviews with him online, et cetera, sort of authentic real footage. But there hadn't been like a biography written about him until this book came out. So, it's an absolutely wonderful book that I highly recommend for anybody interested. And it's a very real, we definitely take some liberties on the show and I'm happy to talk about that. But this is the real story. That book is the real story of his life. And the author, Mark O'Connell did, I think, like an incredible job. And funny enough, his Al Hynek's sons, particularly Paul Hynek, but also Joel Hynek, who became on as consultants for the show, were also consultants on the book as well. So I think that we were at least able to take some of that source material that was used in the book and apply it to our show where it was fit. So.
Yeah, this book is not translated in French, and I hope one editor will take it and will translate it in French because, of course, for French public, it's difficult to read it in English.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Ouais, on espère qu'un éditeur va nous écouter et traduire le livre, un livre de référence, comme l'a dit David. En plus, il s'en est servi évidemment pour le scénario et pour construire sa série. Alors justement, Pascal, on avait une question, je vais la poser pour toi tous les deux. Ouais. Justement, ça doit être difficile de prendre quand même ce personnage iconique, Alan Hynek, et de créer vraiment une fiction autour. C'est ce que je vais demander à David. David, was it difficult for you to take this real person, Hynek, and to create a fiction with it, with stories and a lot of stories around him?
Yeah, I mean, it presented its challenges for sure. I mean, it's funny, like I was first exposed to Hynek. I had watched a documentary, this is back in like 2005, and it was a documentary that aired on a network in the States. It was called Seeing is Believing. And Peter Jennings hosted it. And in this documentary, they talk about the Real Life Dr. Hynek, they go back and they look at sort of America's very mysterious and strange history with UFOs. And they only spoke of him for a little while, but they talked about how here he is, this, real life UFO skeptic, astrophysicist, total scientist recruited by the Air Force, who obviously over the course of his time working for Project Blue Book shifted his beliefs and his understanding that there really was a scientific mystery to UFOs. And so that became that sort of transitional arc from like somebody who's a skeptic to somebody who kind of shifts sides and comes to believe that there's really something going on here, which I also believe as well, became sort of like the basis for the show. And then the idea was, okay, like how can we, and listen, some of the cases we explore are obviously cases that Hynek himself really delved into. Some of them are cases that Project Blue Book looked at, but maybe Hynek wasn't as involved in. But for me, then it just became about how do we try to tell cover as many interesting and different types of stories, different types of UFO events, real life events, through the lens of this man, and then also through the lens of the first director of Project Blue Book, who himself also had a change of opinion over the course of his time, working for Project Blue Book, and himself also wrote a book about it called The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects, I believe it's called.
We talk about Hynek, but let's talk about Captain Quinn. I mean, he's not a real person, so who is he?
Right. Yeah. So he was originally, he's sort of a composite of a few different directors of Project Blue Book, but I would say that the person he was most modeled after was the first director of Project Blue Book, a guy named Captain Ed Ruppelt, who was sort of a young, captain put in charge of this new program who, over the course of his time, I think he worked from Blue Book from like 1952 to 1954 or something like that. I could be wrong. Forgive me. It's been a little while, but just came up, studied some fascinating cases that we ended up using in the show, whether it was, sort of the famous event of over 2 weekends, over Washington, D.C., these fleets of UFOs caught on radar where they scrambled jets. He talked about the Lubbock Lights, which is a famous case in Texas where a V-shaped craft, was seen by multiple witnesses, things of that nature. So we definitely because we felt we wanted to dramatize that character and he really becomes his own sort of character in his own right with his own demons and his own backstory and stuff like that, we did change the name. But actually initially when the script was written, his name was Ruppelt. But, once you realize, okay, we're really dramatizing certain people here, we wanted to make sure that we would have the freedom as storytellers to kind of do what we wanted with the characters, but still have the basis. So that became the idea.
Donc, comme il l'a dit, c'est un mélange de plusieurs personnages, mais en particulier c'est Ruppert. Et en fait, ça lui laissait plus de liberté justement pour créer des histoires, de ne pas prendre la vraie personne parce que ça partait trop dans cette direction. Donc, il a décidé de créer un personnage à part entière. Voilà.
Juste, on va préciser que Ruppelt, I will try to do it to speak in English. Ruppelt have read a book in 46. Nico, do you remember the title of this book?
Yes, I think
I don't remember the title.
I think it was 1956, and it's called the Report on Unidentified Flying Objects. And there's 2 editions of that book, by the way. There's the edition that came out originally where it's very much sort of a critique of Project Blue Book and basically saying that he feels that there's something very genuine to this phenomena, but that he's feeling the pressure to kind of dismiss it away and cover it up. And then there was a book released, a modified version of it released like 3 or 4 years later, where some of that language was walked back, and many believe it was like he got some pressure to do that or whatever. And I'm not I don't pretend to know the answer to that, but what I will say is that it's a great book, and we used it for sure. And I just find it fascinating that not only the chief scientific advisor of Project Blue Book, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, but also the first director of Project Blue Book, a military man, both kind of came to the same conclusion that there's something genuine and real, to what's going on. So, I mean, that for me is just like, oh my gosh, so putting them two together on a show sort of became the idea.
Yeah. In this book, he talked about the Washington carousel, and it was something absurd. The army didn't want him to go to investigate about it.
Yeah. He talked about how they didn't want him to go investigate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And and there really was this pilot who chased after these things and saw these things. Now, of course, we made that Captain, Michael Malarkey's character. We dramatized him. We threw him right into the action. That wasn't the case. Edward Pelt wasn't the pilot up in the plane chasing after these things, obviously. But that became sort of an interesting insight into the show, which was we realized that to tell the stories we wanted to tell properly, we had to thrust our UFO researchers into the phenomenon, right? Because in reality, if you're a UFO researcher, you're studying UFO cases after the fact, right? Mm-hmm. After they occur. And certainly our show does that to some degree as well. A weird thing happens and then they show up and they start to investigate it. But then where we usually took liberties with the show is that mysterious phenomena, whatever it might be, continues and starts to happen to our guys in some way, because they are the eyes, the perspective through which, the point of view through which the show kind of unfolds. So we had to kind of find ways to throw them right into the action. But what we always tried to do was make sure as much as possible that the strange details of the case were pulled from real life witness accounts about the case, as much as we could,
Ouais, donc ce qu'il vient de dire en fait, c'est que pour lui c'était plus simple de mettre les personnages devant les ovnis, devant les cas, plutôt que comme la plupart des ufologues ou des enquêteurs en parler après. Pour l'intérêt de la série, il a un petit peu modifié la réalité et il a mis les personnages au centre des apparitions, ce qui n'est pas le cas forcément dans la réalité. Nico, vu qu'on parle un peu de l'histoire réelle des cas, est-ce qu'on pourrait parler un peu de ce qui s'est passé avec l'UAPTF? Je pense que tu as suivi, parce que ça s'est produit je pense au moment où la série a commencé à être tournée, ou même juste avant. Donc on peut se demander si ça a influencé, David.
Oui, Karine, okay. Well, David, I have this question about, I think you're super aware about the actual UFO news media all over this last 3 to 4 years, since I would say 1917, December, when we have this old guy from the DoD who's starting to talk about the UFO program. I think you heard about this story. So, did you have any influence based on those true actual news? Did you have any influence about it?
Sure. I mean, you're talking about how the Pentagon, when the story hit in 2017. So yeah, I mean, guys, that happened on, I think it was either the first or second day of filming of season 1, right?
Okay.
We started filming. Yeah, it was so insane. I remember we had started filming in December of 2017.
Okay.
And all of a sudden there's this New York Times story that hit that basically is the Pentagon admitting, a whistleblower inside the Pentagon admitting that Project Blue Book 2.0 exists, right? The Unidentified Aerial Threat Identification Program, known as ATIP. And that was, and then, the release of those fighter jet camera videos, 3 different ones that have come out and been rigorously studied. and then everything that's happened since. The fact that the U.S. Navy now takes UFO sightings much more seriously. The U.S. Army admits that they are studying what are known as metamaterials, that they have this sort of language that they talk about these things that are sort of like metal and technology that they're not quite sure the source of that, like sort of like UFO debris, essentially. The fact that there's been this new task force that's been put forward by like Marco Rubio and others, like, strangely, that is going to investigate this stuff for real. And just sort of, but it affected us in that we got to be we got to be a show that I think was hitting about UFOs, and there hadn't really been one since the X-Files, right at a time when I think that the phenomena itself was really starting to open up and be regarded as something real, which everybody involved, or not everybody involved in the show, but certainly me, my partner on it, this guy, Sean Jablonski, who was our showrunner, like we were diehard UFO believers just because of our own research and our own conclusions just on looking back at the history. But it was not, I can't tell you how many emails and texts I got from people, like in the aftermath of that New York Times story and everything that followed, where people are like, wait a minute, is this for real? Like, wait a second, is this actually real? And, listen, the answer is yes. The answer is there's something flying in our skies that we don't understand. When arguably the most powerful Navy on the planet is seeing these things on radar, they're scrambling fighter jets, they're seeing the tic-tac, they're seeing these objects fly right by them and behave intelligently, meaning, maneuver in ways that are evasive, trying to like go away from somebody or things of that nature. That displays some level of intelligence. So it was great. Like, I think it informed us in that it reasserted the notion that the military takes these things very seriously, that there are programs that investigate this stuff, and that the public isn't fully aware of the truth. And that was always, I think, a big piece for us. I know when I was like selling the show, trying to convince History to greenlight it straight to series, I had this line that was something about, that it was sort of the original fake news to some degree. And that Project Blue Book was in many ways sort of, a misinformation campaign used to control public perception about UFOs so that we wouldn't think, so that we could explain them away, while behind the scenes, even the people involved in that program were taking the matter very seriously, even if publicly men like Dr. Hynek would have to go out there and kind of twist as best he could scientific explanations that he himself didn't feel happy with to kind of explain what was going on.
Did you have any chance to talk with any people who was involved in the AT program?
So I didn't have a chance to talk to anybody. Oh no, I did actually. I'm sorry. I did sit down with Tom DeLonge, of all people.
Oh, sounds good. All right.
Yeah. What am I talking about? I forgot I had lunch with Tom DeLonge, for crying out loud. Sean and I both did. We set that up. My agent was able to, actually his agent, had reached out and asked me if that was something of interest to me, which it absolutely was. That was, I think, in between season one and season two. But after I had sold the pilot to History, but before we had been picked up as a show, it was just a maybe, right? A project in development. I got to interview the last living director of Project Blue Book, the original Project Blue Book, a man named Lieutenant Colonel Robert Friend, who has since passed on at the age of 99. I got to go to his 99th birthday party. This is a guy, African-American, Tuskegee Airman in World War II, like a famous troop of, African-American fighter pilots, and ran Project Blue Book. I think he was the third or fourth director of Project Blue Book. I interviewed him for like 90 minutes. I asked him every single question I ever had. He was so valuable. I asked him every question I had about how Project Blue Book actually operated, what its offices looked like. You know, I mean, I asked him sort of more salacious questions, like if you knew that UFOs represented like an extraterrestrial intelligence, you know, would you have told us then, and can you tell us now? And to which I remember him saying, I wouldn't have told you then, and I can't tell you now. Now that doesn't mean that he's admitting to anything.
Yeah.
But he himself had seen some strange things. That he was so forthcoming. And, I mean, one of the most prized, things I own is that book we were talking about before, that you know, the book written by the first director of Project Blue Book, signed by the last living director of Project Blue Book, with all my notes in it for the show Project Blue Book. So it's like this, like three different, it's like one of my prized possessions, just because, like, you know, it brings so many different pieces of that story together, you know. But those were the real, you know, and we did at times look into, I think we reached out to, Hynek had like a very well-known secretary or like assistant. But we tried to get her on board. I think she's featured in the Mark O'Connell book, but I don't think we got much, you know, for whatever reason, we didn't get much there. And then, of course, we had Hynek's real-life son, who remembered what it was like for his father. And they have incredible stories. I mean, Paul Hynek, by the way, if you guys ever do another show on UFOs, is like great. Like, he's such a media savvy person and can talk for hours. He knows his UFO history insanely well as well, but has all these great stories about what it was like having, like, you know, UFO witnesses pop over at the house and like have dinner, and what it was, and also just like what the program did to his father, who was a very kind of, you know, rational scientist who had an open mind, but wasn't convinced at first that what was going on was real, but definitely became convinced that there was legitimacy there.
Donc, comme il nous a dit, il a rencontré des gens qui ont été impliqués directement dans le projet Blue Book, dont le dernier directeur du projet Blue Book, et il a pu le rencontrer, il a même fait signer son livre avec ses annotations pour la série dedans. Oui, un truc que j'aimerais bien évoquer, c'est le fait que, comme on l'a dit, il a pris quelques libertés avec l'histoire réelle, et certains ufologues américains ont été un petit peu durs avec lui. J'aimerais bien savoir comment il l'a vécu. David, I heard that some American ufologists have been pretty hard on you because they did not fully understand that it was not a documentary. It is a fiction. Yes,
and I understand that position also. Like, I think if I had devoted my life to being like a UFO historian, you know, which I am an amateur UFO historian, but I'm a television writer, right, professionally. I think that, like, you know, I would understand the position. Like, we take liberties, you know, we absolutely take liberties. What initially conceived, and history agreed with me on this, and this was one of the reasons I was so happy that the show found a home on history. It's right in a meeting we had before I even had sold the show, where they just wanted to like meet me and, you know, kind of talk about it. I had pitched them the idea of, you know, wouldn't it be great if we did to learn more about the real life case that inspired this week's episode of Project Blue Book, tune in after the show or go online or do something like that. And what they ended up doing, which I thought was really smart, and I don't know that these segments air in other parts of the world because history controls the content. But after every episode of Project Blue Book, there was like a 1 minute, 2 minute, short micro documentary about the real life case. That for us, our hope was always drew a line in the sand between like the fiction that we had just told them and the story that we're telling them. And, you know, because, you know, you got to tell a drama, and it's got to, you know, we were doing what's known as a serialized television show. So every week builds on the week prior, and there's certain mystery elements that are like, that follow week to week and stuff like that. But that people would have a resource to then do their own research into the actual case that inspired this week's event. We had some real life wonderful people who participated in that, including a very well-known UFO historian named Richard Dolan, who's big in the States. We even had Jacques Vallée, who was a dear friend of Hynek, participate. I think in season 1. I'm not sure if he did season 2. He might have done both. And so that for us was always trying, like, and then we tried. I mean, I would go online and as best I could, like on Twitter and stuff like that. Like one of the true joys of the show was for me was live tweeting the show with the audience when it aired in America on the East Coast, which is like I guess the more watched coast. And I was always trying to constantly throw in information like this really happened, or like learn more about, like check out this book. This is what that inspired this week's case. Trying to show them like where we were taking nuggets, like little kernels of truth, and then throwing them in a blender and then creating like a fictional story, which is what we did. Like we were not a documentary by any stretch. Like, you know, Hynek didn't really go back and investigate, like, you know, somebody who like for the Roswell incident, for example, somebody who was trying to like, you know, that was a dramatized way we found where there's somebody who's trying to draw attention to Roswell to bring our guys in. But then all the weird stories and facts that Hynek and Quinn hear about Roswell are based off real books and witness accounts that we heard. Everything from like the shooting of a, you know, I don't want to ruin it. I don't know if this is airing before we air the second season, but what I'll say is like all the fantastical stories about that our duo come across in learning about what really happened in Roswell are based on the best research we could find about what people claim really happened there. But how do we bring our guys in when it's 1963 in the storyline and they have to go back to investigate a case that occurred in 1947? That's where we dramatize this actor, you know, this person who wants to kind of expose the truth. And that all that kind of stuff is dramatized. Like there wasn't really like, I don't want to ruin the episodes, but you know, so we draw them in dramatic ways, but we always try to bring in the real interesting elements when we can. And then I'm always like, hey, if like you want to read a book about Roswell, go read, you know, Witness to Roswell, like one of the great books. Certainly one that we use. So. But I do understand the critique, and I hope. Sorry, I got one more thing. And I hope that it's like what we always tried to do with the show was to inspire people to then go off and do their own real life research. Like we're a piece of entertainment with like a little bit of education, but really it's like we're a piece of entertainment that hopefully then further ignites people's interest in actually doing the real research.
Donc on comprend très bien la réaction des ufologues qui ont un petit peu tiqué sur certains détails, mais voilà, c'est pas un documentaire, c'est un divertissement qui prend sa base dans des faits réels, et il comprend très bien par contre que certains aient pu être un peu heurtés, mais c'est un divertissement, et pour les besoins du scénario, eh bien on prend quelques libertés. Pascal, toi, tu avais une question intéressante, c'était sur le choix de l'acteur qui a joué Hynek. Est-ce que tu veux que je la pose ou tu la poses?
Oui, pose-la. Ce sera sûrement plus compréhensible.
I have a question from Pascal. He wants to know how did you choose the actor that play Hynek? I mean, Aidan Gillen, who has played a very different role before, so why him?
Great question. And Aidan was the first piece of, there he is, was the first piece of casting that we did. And because the notion was sort of like, we got to find our Hynek and then we can build the show around Hynek. It's funny. So we needed an actor. I remember like talking to our casting directors about this. We wanted to have an actor who, number one, you had to believe that he was the smartest guy in the room. Right? Like, you know, that the wheels were like, so much of the show, as you guys know, like rests on like the quiet wheels of the mind kind of turning as you start to piece together, like what's really going on here. Now, certainly Aidan, even from his role in like Game of Thrones, you know, playing Littlefinger, you knew he had that sort of, in that show, it was more like the Machiavellian wheels are always turning, but he had those, like, can you trust him? The wheels are turning. He's always up to something. So we knew that he could handle that. But then if you look at Aidan's other work, because the other important piece was like, he's the smartest guy in the room, but he's also this lovable family man, somebody that he's really likable. And if you look at Aidan's body of work on the variety of other shows he's done a ton of stuff that is much lighter and much more kind of like, you really just like him. You really just want to go along for the ride. And then of course was the fact that Aidan himself had a genuine interest in this subject matter. He spoke a little bit about the impact that the movie Close Encounters had on him as a young man. And then thankfully, I mean, listen, it was one of those things where we had our list and Aidan was like at the top, and he read the script and thankfully liked it. I mean, so much of it comes down to that too. It's like you have to find the actor who responds. But Aidan was our first choice. I mean, we all kind of rallied around this, because it's tough. Like you're trying to figure out who's it going to be, and it's like, but thankfully, I think he embodied both that intelligence and that likability, and that believability. And Aidan is like, it's funny. I was just emailing with him not long ago. We certainly stay in touch because I just think he's so talented, and there's so many different. He's one of those true actors who's he vanishes into the role. You know what I mean? Every role he plays is entirely different. And it's amazing to see the difference between like the Aidan Gillen I know and the Dr. Alan Hynek that people know from the show. So it's fascinating. He's just, he's that guy. He's just so, yep. But that's how that one came to be. And then it was finding, Malarkey. And by the way, that was actually in some ways a more difficult process because the role had initially been, conceived as a little more like, this is like the only description I can give, but if you guys remember the actor Paul Walker from like Fast and Furious,
sure,
like Bill, like blonde, like sort of salt of the earth, like American boy, and Malarkey, like obviously is in shape and all that kind of stuff, but had a much more of like a depth and sort of a darkness to the role that he brought, even in the audition. And I've been promising fans for like 2 years that I would share his audition, tape, and I have to find it. I must have it somewhere. It was so different than everyone else's take on the character. It had just this rebellious darkness inside of it, despite him wearing a uniform. And we all just like realized, oh my God, this character can be so much more interesting than sort of the kind of like, I don't know, like just the more straight-laced kind of American, I'm a patriot loyal to my Air Force rank persona that we had initially perceived. It was one of those things where once we cast him, we started to realize we had a much richer character to write to than we realized. We knew we had something really special with Hynek, but I think Quinn became like, oh my God, like he's going to be just as interesting as Hynek in completely different ways. And that wasn't clear to me at first that was where the show's like secret sauce was going to lie. It was like between the two of them.
Donc pour résumer, en fait, Aidan Gillen a ce côté très sympathique naturellement, et le docteur Hynek était quelqu'un de sympathique, un bon père de famille, et Aidan Gillen vraiment le porte sur lui. Et en plus, Aidan Gillen a un intérêt spécifique pour le sujet. Voilà, il adore la science-fiction, il s'intéresse à l'ufologie. Et en ce qui concerne le Captain Quinn, eh bien c'est l'acteur Michael Malarkey qui a un peu façonné le personnage, qui a un côté un peu dark, qui a façonné bien la création de ce personnage qui n'existe pas vraiment dans la réalité. Voilà pour vous répondre. Nico, est-ce que tu as une question pour David qui te vient à l'esprit?
Yeah, question. We can actually talk for hours about the show. So that's the issue because we have a very limited time. So, but yeah, when I was watching the show for the first time, I was in Japan and I had the chance to watch it. It was, I really like it, and many times I saw or I felt like maybe you have some influence based on the X-Files TV show in the past. When I remember some shoot that the directing using sometimes all the colors that you are using, some music and sound. Also, they're not so close in the X-Files, but sometimes you can feel there is something connected to the X-Files. And I mean, in the entire world of entertainment, TV entertainment, X-Files is the show about paranormal.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the real case of the Project Blue Book, and X-Files got the same thing. It was not advertised in that way, but it was the same thing. Many episodes was based on true facts. So this is probably what I really like Project Blue Book, because there is this X-Files feeling all across the first season. I haven't watched yet the second season. I'm gonna do it. But I was waiting for my wife for doing it. But anyway, I really appreciate the first one, and I have this feeling. So maybe you can share some influence.
Oh my God. Absolutely.
Okay, let's go.
I mean, no, I mean, like and I'm sorry, I'm catching like the sun is like, I'm like, this isn't a stain on my shirt, it's the sun. And I'm like, and then like the fan is like, anyway, my framing could have been better. Speaking of framing and light and all that. The X. I mean, listen, I grew up loving the X-Files. I've always been a UFO. I grew up in New York City, so I don't know why I've been obsessed. You know, I think I could barely see the night sky where I grew up, and yet was forever fascinated by UFOs. I mean, I've been watching documentaries and reading UFO books since I was like way too young, like where I would scare myself at night. You know what I mean? It was no good. But I loved watching the X-Files because I was drawn to it because of the subject matter. And then, of course, it was just this great mystery show. And I mean, I think without a doubt, there are influences. And it's funny. I also think to some degree, we draw upon the same influences of like the Men in Black. Like reports of the Men in Black was always something that was an eerie, weird aspect to the phenomena that I wanted to explore. So like the X-Files has the like cigarette smoking man, and we have like our a man we called Unseen, who I guess on IMDb they call him the Fixer, and I have no idea why, because we never did. I was always like, the Fixer, where did that come from? But he was always referred to as Unseen, meaning like for a while you don't see him, and then when you do, his methods and motives are unknown. And I just thought like in the script, he was always known as Unseen until we named him, and we didn't, well, I don't want to get there, but I guess it's a little spoiler, but it's like, we do name him eventually, in season 2. But, but in terms of the kind of every week there being a case, you know what I mean? A new event that they need to go out and investigate. The fact that it's a duo of people with differing agendas investigating that case, the sort of noir, kind of sci-fi noir aspect of the show. Absolutely. The way I pitched the show when we were first taking it out is it's a real life X-Files set in the time of Mad Men. I mean,
I truly love you and I hate you at the same time, because I've been through pitches many times, and pitching Project Blue Book would have been amazing, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had an amazing time pitching it.
I did. And it was one of those things. It's funny, like initially, because I wrote it as a spec pilot, meaning I wrote it for free. I wrote it as, honestly, I was working as a writer in movies, but I didn't have any credits that got made. I had like sold a thing, I'd gotten hired to write something, etc. And I was like, I really want to break into TV. And so I'm always sort of like, I don't know, embarrassed to admit this, but I've written many pilots since, but Project Blue Book was the first pilot I ever wrote. I was writing 2 things at the same time. And Blue Book was always conceived as a sample, because I just didn't think, I was like, I wasn't a proven TV entity, somebody in TV at that time. And I wrote it as just a passion piece, as like a way to kind of reflect my voice as a writer. I was like, and I remember when we started shopping it, even though we hadn't sold it, because it took us months to kind of find a home for it and realize History was doing scripted and they'd be great partners on this and all that kind of stuff. And to get Zemeckis' company involved and everything, it all took a little time. But I remember thinking, even before that, I like talking to my wife and just being like, I'm so proud that like I got that script out there and that it's, at least I got it out there, you know, like at least people around Hollywood have read it, you know, but then I did eventually have to pitch it when it became time to put together a presentation to kind of convince the larger powers that be in New York that to make it into a series, because History has a straight to series. When History now is also shifting. One of the reasons that we're not going to air on History anymore is they're also getting out of scripted in terms of ongoing series. They'll do like a limited series, but they're not doing ongoing series anymore. So that's a change in the business model that sadly we were affected by. But putting it together, I put together a pitch that had slides, kind of like what you guys are doing with the show. Slides, except using template actors. I think I had Matt Damon as Hynek, and I had a awesome. young James Marsden as Quinn. You know, awesome. But weirdly, guys, Neil McDonough was the prototype for Harding, and we cast him. It was that's where the magic starts to come in. But then I also put together like a what's known as like a Rip-O-Matic trailer, which is like I cut a fake trailer for the show utilizing pre-existing material from a zillion different sources set to music I didn't own the rights to or anything like that. Not for any profit or anything like that, but just for internal use.
That's the way that's the way you do it, and
that's the way you do it.
Yeah, sure.
And that was one of the most fun things to put together, to be honest, and really helped me, you know. And then I think
to get the mood, how you
to get the mood.
Yeah.
And I've shown that to people since, and they're like, you know, and I showed that to people on the show, you know, they're like I remember showing it to like our day-to-day like on-set producer, and he was like, "Oh my God, this is the show!" Like, and that feels really cool too, to kind of see it go from just an idea, obviously, to, you know, from an idea and sort of a vision, I guess, you know, to, you know, and then of course everybody involved just made it look that much better and that much cooler. But it always like that sort of mystery, sci-fi noir, darkness, kind of eerie music. And by the way, guys, the music, this was just another awesome aspect about the show. The composer of the show is a dear friend of mine that I went to summer camp with when I've known him for 30 years or something. And he was out here and he was already working on other TV shows. And I thought he would be perfect for the show. And he had to do some auditions and stuff like that, but his music was so interesting. And, he's actually, just a quick side plug, he's releasing an album of the show next month.
Oh.
I hope that's not like a secret that I'm not supposed to say, but there's like he's doing a soundtrack of just all the wonderful music that he did for the show, which I'm just like, fucking A, man. It's just really, it's exciting that he's able to do that, and he just knocked it out of the park, I think, in terms of the music. So.
Donc là, David vient de nous révéler un scoop. Il va y avoir un CD qui va sortir avec qui regroupe la musique des séries. C'est vrai que la musique est magnifique, hein, l'ambiance années 50, les décors, la musique associée, c'est vraiment superbe comme atmosphère. On n'a plus tant de temps que ça. J'aimerais bien qu'on parle de la saison 3. On va voir ce qu'il peut nous dire dessus, parce que c'est vrai que la saison n'est pas sortie, mais elle est écrite. Pour le moment, elle est annulée. Je dis bien pour le moment, parce qu'il y a quand même une action en cours pour continuer. Et ce que j'aimerais savoir, c'est qu'en fait, j'ai pu entendre que la saison 3 allait se baser sur les cas de 1954, et on sait qu'en 1954, eh bien, il y a eu beaucoup de cas en Europe, et notamment en France. Donc là, j'ai bien envie de savoir de quoi il compte parler dans cette saison 3. David, let's talk a bit about season 3, if you want.
Yeah, sure.
I heard that you were planning to talk about some international cases.
Absolutely. I heard saison 3, yeah. I mean, this is the thing about season 3, and I really do feel this way, and this is where it's been really hard to not have a home for the show right now is I think Sean feels this way too, like, who's like my partner on this, our showrunner, wonderful guy. I think it's the season we were most excited by. Like, we broke the entire season in outline form. We had a writer's room, like a mini writer's room from January to mid-March while the show was airing. I mean, to the point that it was a weird timing wise, like the weekend that the whole country locked down because of COVID was the weekend that we finished. And it was just a weird thing of I'm stopping work and everyone else is too. But we broke an entire season, and yes, I mean, like, without giving it all away, I can't even say where we leave on season 2 because season 2 hasn't aired yet in France. But yes, it has an international component for sure. And I think one thing I can say is, for those who know their UFO history, if you look at 1954 and sort of the UFO wave, or what is sometimes known as the UFO panic of 1954, some very, very fascinating cases come up. And, I'm talking, not only am I talking in England and Italy, but I am talking in Francais, in French. and you better believe there's an episode that is set in France, which is like one of the things where I was like, oh, this is so cool that, like, because we were weeks in the writer's room living in France, in the 1950s, looking at a variety of different cases. And certainly some of the more famous ones. What I guess people should know about France is there was both a series of what they called, I think in French, it's les cigares volants, like flying cigar sightings, and then also humanoid sightings of these humanoid creatures that was going throughout France. And there's just a variety of really interesting cases. But I mean, yeah, like we wanted to take them global, and at least for a good part of the season. And there's just some wonderful cases. And by the way, Project Blue Book itself did, even though it was an American investigatory arm to research UFO cases in the States, it absolutely did look at cases, overseas, in Brazil, et cetera. And we wanted to really open the show up and expand into those areas. And then still kind of like take it back home eventually, because there was some stuff we wanted to do in the States too, because there's just so many cases. It's just endless. But yes, that's one of the hopes we have. Maybe it involves finding a European partner to help us do that. I don't know, but we really wanted to open the show up, and that would even involve to some degree, some of which shows, like one of my favorite shows is The Americans, and The Americans have that shows in Russian, and it's like, we thought it would be interesting to kind of open the show up and have like characters with UFO witnesses that we meet that are speaking in other languages and bringing their own cultural experiences to it, and just trying to remind people that UFOs are a worldwide phenomenon, and always have been. A worldwide phenomena. It's not in any way. I know sometimes people consider like that, like, kind of U.S. flying saucer to be a bit of like Americana culture or something like that. But the truth is, those things were seen all over the world. They just got very popular in America in the 50s, for a variety of reasons.
Donc là, on a eu une super révélation. On a quand même appris que dans la saison 3, il y avait un épisode qui se basait sur une histoire en France. Attention.
C'est ça.
Justement, puisqu'on parle de la France, Camille, je me tourne vers toi. Parce que Camille, tu habites à Valensole, qui est quand même très célèbre dans le monde de l'ufologie. Il y a eu un cas incroyable à Valensole. Est-ce que tu veux bien nous en dire quelques mots, et ensuite on demandera à David s'il connaît?
C'est ça. Oui, effectivement, j'habite, moi, dans ce petit village qui est un haut lieu ufologique français, malgré tout. On l'appelle même le petit Roswell français. À sa petite échelle, quand même, hein. Non, c'est un cas qui s'est passé en 1965 dans un champ à Valensole, dans les champs de lavande, puisque le plateau de Valensole est réputé toujours aujourd'hui pour sa jolie lavande. Et donc il y a j'ai un blanc.
Un vaisseau.
Donc c'était Maurice Mass, en fait, un agriculteur, qui en travaillant dans son champ le matin très tôt, a observé un vaisseau posé dans son champ, et il s'est retrouvé face à deux petits êtres de petite taille, environ 1 mètre, immobilisé pendant, on va dire, une quinzaine de minutes. Et fait important par rapport à cette histoire, c'est qu'il y a eu des traces au sol qui sont restées pendant très très longtemps et qui ont bien sûr été analysées. Donc c'est un cas qui, toujours aujourd'hui, donc c'est-à-dire plus de 50 ans plus tard, est toujours un cas incontournable en France et surtout tout aussi mystérieux.
Inexpliqué.
David,
voilà.
you know we were talking about the case of Valensole because Camille lives in Valensole. This is the most famous town in France for ufology because there was a spaceship in a lavender field with 2 aliens in a farmer's field. So it's very famous. It was in 65. Do you know it, David?
Are you saying the case of Valiant Thor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Valensole.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much, but yes, not only are we very, very well aware of it, but yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we tried to look into, listen, I mean, I don't want to say too much about season 3 in terms of spoiling it or anything, but, there's some fascinating connections people in the royal family who were really interested in this stuff, in England, sure, that notion of there being somebody, a person who claims to be from somewhere else or something like that was always something, whether you believe it or not, I always thought that we thought that would be an interesting new case to explore. We had done in season 2, and I don't think this is a spoiler, or at least it's a broad spoiler. We explore the notion of like contactees, meaning somebody who claims to be in contact with extraterrestrial intelligence and, or an abductee, but a contactee is a little different. Like you're almost like in communication with them mentally or something like that. But then there's also this other idea of sort of people who claim to like be aliens walking among us, and things of that nature. And I think no matter where you fall on believing those things, and I know that they're, it might be a lot to believe. I just think it's just fascinating regardless. And so that's an area, I think for us, we were always trying to think throughout both seasons and beyond, if we're going to do a case, how can the case feel different than any other case we've already done? And, the good news is, and the thing I think your viewers know or people should know about UFOs at large is that it's a multi-faceted phenomena. Like no one case is exactly the same. There are certain patterns that you can see, like, over time, whether it's like, the V-shaped craft seen in the Lubbock Lights versus the V-shaped craft seen in the Phoenix Lights, 50, 30, 40 years later. But there's so many weird aspects, and ideally we wanted to get into any kind of case and every kind of case we could, because it just makes it's good storytelling. It keeps it fresh. So you're not like, oh, this kind of feels like, season 1 or whatever, but also it just is a true representation of, I think, how broad some of this stuff is, and how strange, that phrase of high strangeness, right? It's true. Like some of these cases are just absolutely crazy, and just but yet that there's a lot of evidence to support them. So, yeah.
Do you remain hopeful about season 3? Is there progress toward season 3?
I remain cautiously optimistic, meaning without going into too much specifics, we have tried at some various outlets in the States to find a season 3. You know what I mean? We have been actively trying to do that. What I'll say is that I do think, a couple of things keep me hopeful. One is things like the fact that we have this wonderful petition that I think, and our fans that continue to create art and, promote the show and all that kind of stuff. Also the fact that the show continues to air around the world even now. It has, am I right that it hasn't aired in France yet, or has it aired in France?
Season 2 will air in February.
In February, great.
Yeah.
So the show will still kind of have this wave of, that happens through the world. I believe that, I think there were a few, our show was not canceled due to a lack of love by the people who created the show or to a lack of numbers of people who watched the show. Like, I think on average, 2.5 million Americans watched Project Blue Book every single week. And that's a great number. Where we got hit was two factors, or three, like COVID-19, just the global pandemic. That was a game changer for all networks. And for us, we are a show that still ran on what's known as like a linear platform. Like, we had commercial breaks, right? Like, we had 5 commercial breaks, which is a lot. And people don't really consume their television that way anymore. I mean, I don't consume my TV that way anymore. You know what I mean? Or if you do, you're fast forwarding through the commercials. And so that just something happening, at least in American TV overall, is that scripted series on basic cable, which we were, it's going away. Unless it's funny, there was an article in Hollywood Reporter a couple of months, or maybe 5 months ago now, written about how that's happening. And then they listed a couple of shows that were sort of the outliers of that. And those were like, American Horror Story, The Walking Dead, Yellowstone, and they listed Project Blue Book as a show that had like sort of defied the odds because it's hard. Advertisers pay less money now for that same amount of space. So it's harder to make your money back. So even a show like ours, which was moderately expensive, but not nearly as expensive as streaming shows, like not even close. Like we I thought did a great job considering that we were not that expensive. It's hard to monetize that show because of people know that you're fast forwarding through the commercials, and that you're not really watching them, so they pay less. And then the third reason just being that the platform in which we aired, which is history, because of these other economic factors, is largely getting out of that mode of storytelling. And they're doing limited series, 3 or 4 episodes and things like that. Are we open to doing like a movie on history or a limited series on history or somewhere else? If it's not a full season, finding ways to condense it so we could finish the story. Absolutely. A movie, a limited 2-night event. So all those avenues are still in discussion. I don't think that we have ruled them out, but I do think at this point it may be one of those things where it has to, the TV economy has to kind of get out from where it is. We have to kind of be back. And then obviously, actors on the show are doing other things, and as they should, like Aiden. I just saw Aiden's doing a couple different things. I just was emailing him partially to congratulate him, but I know that they all really, really want to return, and I feel we all remain in touch. I feel highly confident we can bring our core 6, Aiden, Michael, Neil, and Michael Harney, who play the generals, and then Ksenia, who plays Susie, and who am I blanking on? Oh, and Laura Minnell, of course, plays Mimi Heine. Would come back in addition to some of the other characters that we have planned for as well. Some characters that you'll meet in season 2, and then our mysterious unseen Ian Tracy. We need all those guys. But I guess the short answer is cautiously optimistic, but it's going to take, as all things do, just a little bit of like magic and things falling into place the way they need to, but I don't give up hope. And, we're going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep doing everything I can on my end, for sure.
Nico, toi, tu te sentais assez concerné par le sujet, tu m'avais dit?
Yeah, that's when David is sharing this internal process. I've been through this process many times. I was in LA, so I was working in the video game production, and I work with large company, Lion Gates, and people like that, like Fox. And so the process that you are, man, Jesus, I wish you all the best. Good timing, really good timing. And there is no reason why season 3 won't happen. I mean, when you look at the actual news about the UFO subjects, everybody is so passionate about it. I always remember then when this AT program came out, it was through Democrats, Republican, everybody got some interest about this, this phenomenon. So when you look at the audience and all the people feedback, I think there is no reason why it won't happen. But be cautious in a way. But I wish you all the best.
I hope it happens as a series, but I think, we're also open to doing like a movie, you know what I mean? And I talked to Sean and I are like, should we do it as like a graphic novel, and then have those TV rights options as a series, or do it, I guess we'd have to do it with our partners at A&E who actually own the show, but that'd be great. I'd love to do that. So I think no matter what, we're going to try to do something, because I don't want to say anything about season 2 other than folks will know that we were expecting a season 3. We were expecting a third season. So there are things that are like, oh my God. And then, so we don't want it. It feels unfinished for us.
Yeah. You need a closure. You need the closure.
Because now season 3. So we actually we're at the end of season 3 in our storytelling of where we've intended to go, which makes it that much harder. But it's sadly, as I'm sort of learning, as I've learned over the last couple of months, as I've digested the news, at least for now, it's TV shows get canceled. Who knew? It's I mean, I knew, of course, but it's just it sucks to be on the for so long I was just this is amazing, and then and you get to that place of oh, but everything crashes to earth eventually. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, we feel that thank you for saying that, Nico. We feel that we the show does have still more to say, and I guess that's another way that things could change for us too, is whatever's coming in terms of UFO news in the public and things that shift, that conversation are intriguing as well. It's funny. I used to, when we were developing the show, I got worried that oh my God, what if something comes out about UFOs and that admits that they're real? Then this show about the cover up and all that kind of stuff, is that still relevant anymore if disclosure happens? But then I think yes, because we're going back and we're looking at how it did it. So I mean, who knows what's going to happen with what the governments might be willing to admit to in the future. But
I think we're going to have news very soon, regardless of what is going to be next POTUS there. But when you look at Paul Rubio and Kamala, maybe she's been briefed in some way. We were talking about this with Pascal many times. Maybe she has been briefed with Rubio, but nobody knows really right now. We'll see in the future, but it looks like that we're going to have some big news during December about the UFO subject. We all heard about it. I have no idea what's going to be. It's going to be through TTSA or through the DoD or through. I have no idea, but it may work in your favor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It may help you. Yeah.
I mean, I love seeing. You guys saw those slides. The Defense Department was briefed, and they used terms like off-world vehicles. Off-world vehicles. That is a euphemism for what we're talking about.
I had a conversation maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago with Dr. Alputov.
Oh my gosh! I am very familiar with his work. I've never met him, but that's amazing.
I was so honored to have this exchange of conversation because I'm actually writing a novel about UFOs. So,
great!
Yeah, and he gave me some hints about a few things, but it was so interesting, and they know more about what they admit. That's for sure. They know more. Yeah,
of course they do. Oh, that's great. You'll have to keep me posted on the book when that happens.
Sure.
I'm always. I got a bookshelf filled with various, books, things I still need to read, frankly, but things for the show, and then obviously books I had long before the show,
Et on arrive bientôt à la fin de cette émission. Malheureusement, ça passe vite. Ce que j'aimerais, pour clore un petit peu tout ça, ce serait demander à chacun quels sont vos projets actuels. Nico, tu l'as un petit peu dit, tu es en train d'écrire un livre, et avec Pascal notamment, je crois.
Yes, I'm actually working on 2 novels. One with Pascal here. I'm so honored about it. And the 2 novels are based on UFO. And a third one who is going to be a sequel of my first one that I wrote a few years ago. It's a fantasy. It's a sci-fi, paranormal sci-fi, really mixed up between the TV show Lost and the X-Files. So
nice.
Yeah, and I'm keep working with LA people there. So very tough process.
Oh, sure, but hey, I think it's great. I mean, listen, I've considered writing novels myself. I mean, TV is great, but it's also like, sometimes you just want to like jump onto a story and tell it your way and just put it out yourself or whatever. So like, I definitely understand that itch as well. But I mean, that's why I love this stuff, because it's like, there's endless iterations of how you can explore the subject matter. I mean, like, for this, like the show for me was like one of the ways, but like I've written UFO stuff that takes place in the present day, and and then I as I imagine some of us here might, I have sort of a broad interest in the paranormal overall, which is how I think I know who Hal Puthoff is I think he's done some work on like remote viewing and psychic things of that nature. And I think I have a book on his on my shelf. And I have strong interest in that kind of stuff as well. And I'm always sort of interested in the area, as I imagine maybe we all are in the areas where science and sort of parascience intersect, because I think that I think the more we learn about science, the more probable these claims of quote unquote paranormal events are normalized, because you realize, you realize like, like people who claim to have like a vision of a future event. Well, that sounds insane unless you start to realize that like time itself might have all happened already. And like that, and we're just sort of passing through this thing that already exists, and things of that nature that a lot of people believe are true or are physically true, or that models of our reality support. And I'm always intrigued by, like, even with UFOs, if we had, it was another area that I always wanted to delve into, which was sort of flipping the show upside down and sort of looking at UFOs through a different lens of what they actually are. Because, definitely the show kind of leans in and embraces like an extraterrestrial hypothesis, to some degree. I don't think we've ever walked it so close that we couldn't backpedal it. But UFO, there's a variety of, even Hynek himself thought that there was a variety, that UFOs might be proven to be human beings in the future, or, and UFOs are time machines, or, interdimensional craft of some kind from a hyperdimension, and they share the planet with us, or, it goes on and on. So it's sort of I think it's always good to keep an open mind and sort of use the science to bolster, how you feel about an issue.
While we are waiting for season 3, are you working on new TV projects?
Yes, I am. I got a couple of things. What can I say? I got hired on something. I don't know that I can it hasn't been announced yet, so I don't know if I can fully talk about it, but I can sort of talk around it a little bit. It's an adaptation of a foreign language TV series, actually. It delves into it's crime, but it looks sort of at the future, I guess, of crime, and delves into a little bit of cyber espionage and cyber terrorism and things of that nature. But I'm excited about it. It's a little bit of a departure for me, because almost everything I work on even outside of Project Blue Book, has a sci-fi or supernatural element to it. And this doesn't. This it's got a, it's a mystery and it's a thriller, but it is based, there's no quote unquote like magic, as it were. But I'm excited about it. I think it's interesting. It's challenging me in a way that I haven't been challenged before. And then I have an idea that I'm working on right now that's in TV that is, more like, would probably make a little, like, is more like, oh, it makes sense that I might work on something like this. But like Nico even referenced shows like Lost and Fringe and shows like that are some shows that have deeply inspired me. And so this other one is a little bit more in the Fringe universe, okay. I would say, but is early days. But yeah, but no, I mean, I just feel lucky. And then I got like a couple other, I'm chasing a couple of like movie assignments and stuff like that are sci-fi. But I have, awesome. I'm waiting to hear on a couple of those. But yeah, so it's like I got a crime series and then I got a couple other things I'm sort of like, trying to piece together. But it's, it is one of those weird things of like, oh, like back to the hustle, like I had a show go for 3 years and it's great when that happens. And then it's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, like now I gotta find another one, So I have a couple of things. And then of course I remain hopeful that somehow Blue Book will come back. I mean, that would be my dream,
Yeah. I wish you many seasons.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Pascal et Camille, pour vous, les projets, c'est quoi actuellement? On a entendu parler du livre que tu fais avec Nico.
Écoute, oui, c'est vrai que la grosse actualité, c'est le livre avec Nico. Et puis avec Camille, bien sûr, on continue notre travail au quotidien. Vous nous verrez encore un petit peu à la télé sur C8, sur Enquête Paranormale, je pense d'ici l'année 2021. Et puis, on continue nos émissions. Hein, donc, bien sûr, sur la chaîne Maybe Planet, on travaille activement pour proposer des programmes UFO. Mais un petit peu comme disait David aussi, on élargit au champ du paranormal. Voilà, donc, je pense que 2021 va être une année riche.
Parascience, physique quantique, entre autres. Il y a de belles choses qui vont arriver, de gros projets en cours. Mais un peu de patience.
Super. Je crois qu'on va se dire au revoir parce qu'on a passé presque 1h30 ensemble. C'était passionnant. En tout cas, on a appris plein de choses sur la série, des révélations, des choses qu'ils n'avaient jamais dites avant. Yeah. Je suis super heureuse. Hein.
Great. Thank you, David, for this time we share together. It was a great pleasure to speak with you today.
Oh, thank you guys. Likewise, and like what an interesting, great panel of different people like-minded, with so many similar interests all around the world, which is I just think so wonderful to see. And I'm so glad I did this, like for real. Like I haven't done like an international press event like this, and like I Corinne, thanks for reaching out and thinking of me, and this was wonderful. So please stay in touch. You guys know how to find me. I'm easy on social media.
Thank you.
And thanks again. And I hope everyone enjoys season 2. And thanks for thinking of me.
Thank you very much.
Et je voudrais dire un grand merci aussi à Karine qui a permis encore une fois que cette émission puisse se faire. Merci Karine.
Merci Karine.
Karine que vous pouvez retrouver, je le dis, mais que vous pouvez retrouver aussi sur sa chaîne YouTube, puisque Karine est aussi une spécialiste des phénomènes météo extrêmes. Alors, on a eu la chance de faire une émission avec elle, elle nous a montré plein de choses passionnantes. N'hésitez pas à aller voir cette émission. Et surtout, n'hésitez pas à vous abonner à la chaîne de Karine. Elle produit régulièrement des capsules d'excellente qualité. C'est toujours un excellent moment de la regarder à l'écran. Donc, merci Karine pour ce super moment.
Merci à tous. C'est un plaisir de vous avoir autour de moi.
Merci Karine.
Thank
you.
Et puis pour finir, n'oubliez pas de signer la pétition. Pour qu'on puisse avoir une saison 3, même si en France, on n'a pas encore eu la saison 2, on sera ravis de savoir que la saison 3 peut se filmer. Donc, n'hésitez pas à signer la pétition. Tous les liens seront en description.
Merci à tous.
Merci à tous.
Merci beaucoup.
Ciao.
Ciao, guys.
Ciao.